Hey there, students. Welcome to this quick grammar tutorial to prepare for the test week. What we're going to ask you to study for the test week is it's actually four things. The first thing is we're going to ask you to check the grammar references for Unit 1, 2, and 3. So that's Unit 1, and then it continues on, and it starts on page 136 of your textbook. The second thing is to go through the workbook exercises that we did in class, and there's also in your workbook at the very end you can find a CD that you can use. It's called an eye checker. You can use that to practice a little bit more. And then the fourth thing is the grammar notes that I've given you in class, that we discussed in class. So also make sure you look at that while preparing for the test week and the units that we ask you to prepare. Well, the first unit, we're going to go through the grammar references quickly. The first unit, it says tenses, the tijden. And so pretty much the first unit was about talking about the present, tegenwoordige tijd, the past, verleden tijd, and the future, and how to make these in English, how to form these in English. Now, they have some examples here, and the first one, it says present tense, and we looked at it in class, and we discussed that usually you always get the full verb. So you say I earn, you earn, I live, you live, I talk, you talk, and the same goes for we, you, and they. When you talk about the present. It's just that with he, she, and it, you get an extra S. You see that here? So you don't say she live, you say she lives in London. Now, if you go on to the past tense, we'll get to the ing form, by the way, a little later. If you get to the past tense, what you always see in the past, verleden tijd, is that there's always a little bit of a time expression in your sentence. Here, look, 30 years ago and last month. And the time expression, it's usually a time expression, well, actually, it's always a time expression of the past. So you know that if you use something like that, then your sentence is going to have to be in the past. So how do you make a past tense? You take the verb, the word move in this case, and you add ed or d. If the verb already ends with an e, you only add a d, and otherwise you add ed. The word have is an irregular verb. We'll get to the irregular verbs later this year. Now the future form, you form the future form by using a form of the verb to be. So am, are, or is, plus going to plus the verb. So I am going to study for a master's degree, or what are you doing tonight? What are you going to do tonight? It's all about the future. And so it's a reference to something that's going to happen in the future. So you use going to for that plus a form of the verb to be. Here are the auxiliary verbs. These are all the forms of to be. So pretty much the hulpwerkwoorden. So verbs that sort of help the other verb. And here, if you go to the positive and negative, do notice that when you make a negative sentence in English, you can't say I work not in New York or I watch not TV. You have to add a form of the verb do here. So don't say I work not, say I don't work or he doesn't work. And if you talk about the past, don't say we watched not TV, but you have to say we didn't watch TV or I didn't watch TV or I didn't visit the place. Yeah, so make sure you look at that as well. Then here are the questions. That should be pretty straightforward. I think you can go through those yourself. Then we have Unit 2, the present simple again. It kind of talks about all of that I just talked about. So here, the negatives and the positives. I live and I don't live. We live, we don't live. And then he, she, and it, we go lives and doesn't. Questions, same thing. Notice the difference between do and does here. Let's continue on. Well, here's the present simple. It talks about that the present simple is used for a habit, een gewoonte die je hebt. So getting up at 7:30. So you say I get up. Or it's a fact and fight, something that's always true. Or something that's been going on for a longer time. These things are pretty straightforward, I think. Then you have the present continuous. We haven't really talked about that one. You can find the present continuous here as well. Look here. I am saving and they're studying. These are called present continuous. Now, if you go through the examples here, how do you form a present continuous? It says here, the form, am, is, or are plus ing. And then you add a verb here, work, or working, actually here. You add ing. And when do you use a present continuous? You use a present continuous here to describe an activity that's happening now. So when something is going on now, you are now watching this video. I am now recording this video for you so you can prepare for your test. Yeah, so you use the form here, am is for are plus verb plus ing to describe something that's happening now. Yeah, so you're watching this video. So the difference between the present simple is here again. The present simple describes a habit or a fact, whereas the present continuous, this one, describes something that's really happening now. So please notice the difference. If we continue on, have got and have, we can just go through that. I don't think that should be too hard. Then we go to unit 3. That's the past simple. Kind of something that we already talked about. Remember the past, verleden tijd. Again, notice that there's always a time expression in the past, yesterday, last week, 5 years ago. And also notice here that when you go negative, you have to use didn't in the past. So I didn't finish the job or my work, or I didn't finish watching the movie yesterday. So you always use didn't in the negative in the past. When you use questions in the past, when you make questions about the past, you would have to use did. So when did he arrive? When did you watch the movie last week? Yeah. This is about the spelling of the regular verbs. Make sure you go through that as well. Notice that there's they talk about consonants and vowels, where vowels are klinkers and consonants here. The word consonant is a medeklinker. So we talked about this as well. You can't go stopped with one P because then you would get stopped, remember? Then we have the past continuous, which is kind of the same as the present continuous. And the difference is that the present continuous is something that's happening in the present, and past continuous is something that was happening in the past. We did a few sentences about those in class. And usually when you use the past continuous, it's a sentence that it's kind of going on, something's going on, and then something else happens, something very quick. So I was watching a soccer game, or I was playing a video game, or I was reading a book when suddenly someone entered. You know, so something's going on. I was doing something and I was watching, and then all of a sudden something else happens. It's kind of here. It's kind of what it describes here as well. So the past simple really is something that's completed. So when you say I watched television last night, that means that you're no longer watching it. When you say I was watching, you're not really describing the fact that it's done. You're kind of more describing the fact that you were doing it. Yeah. So do make sure you check those example sentences to make it perhaps a little more clear. And these are prepositions in time expressions. You just have to learn those by heart. Okay, I think that's it. If you have any other more questions, also make sure you practice with the eye checker and also go through those workbook exercises to check to see, how you did your homework, and also check your grammar notes, of course. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. All right, bye-bye.